Greetings, beloved brothers and sisters. I wish to speak with you today about identity. It is a precious gift to be on this planet at this time for the purpose of healing not only your soul, but everyone's. This is the gift of this time, that people can bring to consciousness that which is unconscious, and then bring love to that so it can heal. About 2.5 months ago, this one, coming back from the bathroom in the middle of the night in the dark, tripped over something and fell really hard before he knew it on his right wrist, and it bent his wrist backwards. And it's been a slow healing process. And he has had physical therapy and wears a brace on his arm. But the hands are things that get used all the time, and it's hard to really give them a rest. Slowly, he was starting to feel better. And then 2 nights ago, in the dark again, he forgot something in the kitchen and didn't want to turn on the light because he didn't want to disturb the cats. And once again, tripped over the door to the dishwasher that he didn't realize he had left open in the dark, and clunked his shin and fell on that same wrist and bent it backwards. And at that moment, a tremendous energy was released that was very familiar to him. It was the energy of self-hatred, condemnation, shame, criticism, and ruthless unforgiveness. And like an old recording, he started yelling and throwing things and condemning himself for being so stupid and asking a bunch of why questions. Why didn't he turn on the light? Why didn't he remember to close the dishwasher door? Why didn't, whatever. And it didn't feel like he had any control over this. It's like a devil had been released. The meanest language, the most out of control, impulsive behavior. And an amazing thing happened. One, his girlfriend came into the kitchen, and no matter what he said, she stayed completely calm, and she did not react to anything he said. And she said, "Let's get you some ice for your hand." And he was just ranting. And she stayed calm, did not respond to any of his why questions. And eventually they turned the lights off and went back to the bedroom. And in that reaction, her lack of reaction to his reaction, he saw that there was another way to be that was different from what he thought the solution was. His ego kept saying, why don't I have a system at night when I go to bed so I remember to turn off the light over top of the oven so I don't have to come back in the middle of the night when it's dark? And if I had a system and if we had a way of... And juxtaposed to that was the experience of responsiveness that's not based on a better solution. When you think about it, the mind thinks that if all circumstances could be controlled and mastered, then the end result would be perfection, and you could avoid upset for the rest of your life by having a system or having a way of acting. But the answer is never in the doing. The answer is in the being. Who are you being moment to moment? Who is responding? Who do you identify with? And in the calm that she represented, he was able to hear that the voice that was doing the condemning was not even his voice. It was his father's voice when he was a little boy. And he had become identified with his father's angry, shaming, critical voice. And he had become that and was using that to yell at himself for being so stupid. It's easy to see that once you decide that the answer is perfectionism on this plane, you can't get there from here. There's nothing perfect on this plane. Things break down. Mistakes are made all the time. The answer is not to develop a system. The answer is not to remember this and remember that. And be sure to turn on the light and don't forget the door to the dishwasher. The answer is, who are you being when these things happen? Who are you being? Are you being the Christ? Are you being the gentle voice of God? Are you being who you really are? Or are you taking on the identity of someone who is trapped in their ego? Are you taking on the voice of fear and uncertainty? Who are you being? He could see that at that moment, he wasn't being himself, and he was being some harsher version of his father, much worse than his father ever sounded. All in the attempt to achieve perfection so that the one who's making mistakes would be above reproach. That's the whole goal of perfectionism. I could be above reproach, and then there'd be nothing to criticize me for, and then I could avoid all this condemnation if I was just perfect. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You are perfect. You are perfect whatever you are. And the answer is not in developing strategies. The answer is identity. The answer is, whom are you identifying with? If you identify with the Holy Spirit, if you identify with your highest self. Mistakes will still be made, but you will bring love and understanding and forgiveness and kindness and compassion to the imperfect world that is on this planet, such that it can be transformed and forgiven. That's where perfection lies. Not in your plans, not in your execution, but in your response to the breakdowns that appear to happen right in front of you. That's where the love is, right there. Your response. And he was being given examples from his higher self and from his girlfriend that there is another way to be when things break down. There is a way to respond and not react. Later, he realized that this would probably not be the last breakdown that would show up in his space. And that the opportunity present to him would be to respond differently. To identify with who he really is when things fall apart. To feel his feelings. And to offer love to this body that is hurting from a fall. Interestingly, by the next morning, there was no evidence of anything. His wrist didn't seem any worse. And he had a little bruise on his shin. The effect was negligible. None of the thoughts that he feared about having set himself back and wasted all the physical therapy he had had. None of that came true. This is the power of love. This is the power of forgiveness. This is your identity. Since that time, he's felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for all of it, for the breakdown, for what he saw in his reaction, for the need for forgiveness, for the example that his girlfriend showed, and for the recognition that nothing is wrong. Just gratitude. Love is a wonderful thing. And it's who you are. I love you very much, and I'll speak with you again soon.